another episode of Let's Chat Reality. I'm Michael,
And I'm Molly.
and today we are together in person in
Yay.
Houston. And we are in Houston for a very special reason. Well, I'm always in Houston, but Molly's in Houston for a very special reason. We just got back last night from the Rob Has a Podcast live Survivor show. And it was so much fun. We got to meet all of the RHAP podcasters. They had some Survivor alums there, and we got to watch the episode together and then watch a live podcast recording from them. So, Molly, what did you think of it?
Yeah, it was so much fun. It was cool to get to meet everyone in person and just watch the episode live with everyone was also incredible because there were hundreds of people there, all with the love of Survivor. And so there was cheering and laughter throughout the episode, which this was a great episode for that as well. To be there and see it on the big screen in the theater. It was fun, and I'm glad I came to Houston for it.
Yeah, no, it was great. I've never been to a show like that before where we all just sat in like hundreds of people in a theater and watched the episode together. And I mean, like you said, this was a great one for it because everyone's reaction at the end of the tribal council was just like it was crazy, and to just have that moment with everybody just made it that much better. So yeah, I had so much fun. What were some of your highlights from the night?
I like talking to Owen. It was cool because from season
Season 43,
43,
yeah.
yes. So it was nice getting to talk to past contestants and just hearing their experience. But then also, he was one of the co hosts on this episode they recorded
Mhm.
live. So it was interesting hearing his opinions of this episode as well and just like chatting about all the things we wanted to talk about. So that was really cool. What about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I loved talking with Asia, of
Mhm.
course, from this season. I talked to her a little bit about Rome, and
Yeah.
that was fun to get her insight on that. And yeah, it was really, really fun. Karishma was there, and she was super sweet. She had just had a baby, so that was crazy. It was kind of her first outing after giving birth
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago. And yeah, no, it was Dwight was there, and yeah, it was just really cool. Everyone was so nice, everybody was so friendly, and it was really cool, like you said, to just be in a room of people who all kind of share the same love for Survivor.
Yeah.
And because that's not something that most of my friends watch as religiously, at least as religiously as I do. And so to be with all these people that do, have the same level of fandom for it was really exciting.
Yes, and America and Corey were there as well. So
Yeah.
that was fun. Big Brother alums. And we got to get a picture with America too, which was
I know
fun.
it was so crazy because we had gotten our seats and we were like, oh, let's just go to the bathroom real quick before it starts. And then as we're walking out, I just see America and Corey. I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea they were coming. And I just quickly, it was right time, right place to get a picture with them because then they didn't come to the after party. So
Yeah.
that was the only chance that I got. And Corey wasn't there, he was in line, but America I did get to quickly talk with and get a picture. So that was really cool.
Yes. So I'm glad we went to the bathroom in that
I
moment.
know, I know. I'm
It
glad
all
we
worked
came when
out.
we did. Yeah, it all lined up perfectly.
Yes.
But
Well, should we get into the episode?
yeah, let's get into the episode. So, at the start of the episode, we see Teeny and Genevieve have a conversation where Genevieve tries to convince Teeny that Rachel is a big threat, that they need to get out this week. Now, Genevieve, in doing that, says that basically if Teeny and Rachel are in the end together, that Teeny wouldn't automatically just get Genevieve's vote, that it would be a harder decision for her. And Teeny is offended by that, basically saying, is that a threat? That if we don't get out Rachel this week, that you're not going to vote for me at the end. So then Genevieve basically, they kind of get into a little bit of an argument before Genevieve walks out. So what were your thoughts on how both of them handled that situation? Was Teeny justified in being offended by that? What do you think?
I think that it was smart on Genevieve to try to mention that about Rachel to her just because in general at this point in the game like you want to make sure that if you make it to the final you can get the votes. And so it was very strategic on Genevieve's part. So I thought that was smart of bringing in Rachel. And obviously, Rachel is a big threat in our eyes. We see what's happening. She has the powers that she has, which people don't know she has an idol there too. So I think even with that knowledge, like that we have, we're like, yeah, Rachel really is a big threat. But even in the game, like she is showing that she's winning and having those relationships with people. And Teeny just isn't to that same level, I think. So I think that Teeny obviously is trying to prove themselves and think that they're playing the best game that they are. But I think overall that, I mean, it's valid to feel that way, but I don't think that overall, like, they should have reacted in the way that they did.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that Teeny definitely overreacted there. I
Mhm.
think that's actually something that you should play up.
Yeah.
If somebody says that to you, just kind of like go along and be like, yeah, I don't know if I would win against, or like, make them kind of think that you're just a goat that they're dragging along, that you don't have a game that's deserving of a win. And I think that there's something with Teeny that, and I love Teeny, don't get me
Mhm.
wrong, but I do think that this feels like a little bit of an ego thing,
Mhm.
that they want the credit. They want people to think that they're a threat. And that's not really what you want on Survivor. You don't want, you want everybody to know that by the end.
Mhm.
But I think that that's something where certain things you kind of leave till that final speech.
Mhm.
And then you kind of drop these bombs and be like, oh, wow, you are a threat. You do deserve to win. But I didn't think that as I was playing. And then they go to Ponderosa and then they're like, oh my God, thinking about it, yeah, that they were threats. So yeah, I think it's just one of those things where it's like it's a hard needle to thread sometimes. Like you want the credit, but you don't want the credit for things. So I think that the teen is a little bit ego driven right there.
Yeah, agreed.
But then we get to the reward challenge,
Mhm.
and we find out that they are playing for an Italian meal at the sanctuary where good things happen. And then come to find out after the challenge, when Sam wins, that they're also playing for letters from home. So Sam gets to pick two people to join him on this, and he picks Genevieve and Andy. Now, Teeny goes back to camp and is pissed, to say the least. Teeny is very upset about this. Now, do you think that Sam made the right choices in picking Genevieve and Andy? Was Teeny right to be upset? Should Sam have picked Teeny or anyone else? Thoughts?
I think that Sam made the right decision for in the moment. Like obviously he told Andy that he would take him to a reward when he got it, which he won. So had to fulfill that promise there. But then also Genevieve has been his ally recently that they're both on the bottom there, and so they obviously Sam was going to try to reward Genevieve in that too. I feel like in a game like that, it's been like 5 against 2 in the past weeks. I'd seen like that it was going to be that going into this week, that he didn't really see his position changing by taking anyone else from that alliance. So taking Genevieve, I think, was the right move just in general, because I don't know if it really would have changed that much.
Yeah. No, I don't think that this was a game
Yeah.
ending move by picking the two of them, but honestly, strategically, probably not the smartest,
Yeah.
because, well, who am I to say? I mean, spoiler alert, but their plan worked this week. So, like,
Yeah.
I guess, it gave them time to come up with this plan.
Hmm.
So if he hadn't picked these two, then this whole episode would have been completely different.
Hmm.
So, I mean, honestly, I think I came into this, like, starting this sentence thinking one thing, but as I'm thinking about it right now, yeah, I mean, I guess he did make the right decision, even though it really didn't feel like it at the time.
Yeah. No, and obviously we were seeing the clips of what editing and producers are showing us, like
Hmm.
of Teeny feeling so strongly by it. Like maybe there were thoughts that they had that were like, okay, like maybe this is smart in some
Yeah.
regards, but we're obviously seeing the one end of those different sides of the spectrum there. So
Yeah.
that's showing the story of like, okay, well, yeah, Teeny was really upset. And obviously Teeny is upset. You're losing a reward challenge. But related to the game, I mean, we saw it turn out to work out for them. So
Hmm.
it was,
I think Teeny is just one of those people who just wants to be chosen, wants to be
yeah.
picked. And I think, like, probably it just stung that
Hmm.
that they didn't get picked. But probably once they had a chance to sleep on it, maybe didn't feel quite as strongly as it did
Yeah.
as we were watching it right after it
The
happened.
hangry emotions are coming
Yeah,
out.
exactly. Like, you get a chance to eat, sleep for, sleep on it, then probably would have had a little bit of a different reaction there. But we do see, as we kind of alluded to, at this reward that they concoct Operation Italy.
Mhm.
Genevieve, Andy, and Sam come up with this plan to get the vote to split, and that their target was Rachel to take out. Now, what were your thoughts when this plan was concocted, when we saw it happen? Did you think at that moment that this would work?
In the part when they're talking about all the different things they're gonna do and everything that was gonna have to happen, at first I wasn't totally sure because I was like, well, I mean, yes, they can say this is gonna happen, but is this actually gonna work? Is everyone gonna actually believe this? And so I was a little bit skeptical to start off when they first were mentioning the plan. But then once as the episode went on and the
Yeah.
conversations that they were having were turning into real actions and then really people were believing that, I was like, oh wait, this actually can happen. But I had an instinct that it wasn't going to be Rachel because I had a feeling she might win the immunity. So
Hmm.
I was like, I know they could have other people who get it, but I really felt like Rachel was going to win that, or she would have played an idol, or something in that regard that she would have been safe.
Yeah.
So I did think that they were going to get someone out of those four, but I didn't know who.
Hmm.
And I was sad when we saw who it was. But overall, like it worked out in the planning that they had set up.
Yeah, no, I mean, when this first happened, I guess there was part of me where I was like, wow, everything has to line up for this to work. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many things that could go wrong. And I just thought, God, it feels like there can't be a way that everything goes right here.
Mhm.
And I thought maybe in my mind, I was like, okay, we're gonna like build this up to make it look like it's gonna work. And then something, they're gonna get confident about it. And then something will happen, like kind of out of the blue, a little bit of a right curve.
Mhm.
And then it's all gonna fall apart. That was my first thought. But obviously, that's not what happened. But things didn't go exactly as planned. Like you mentioned, Rachel
Yeah.
did win immunity. Now, this whole Operation Italy was built to get Rachel out specifically because
Mhm.
of the fact that Rachel has a block vote, that getting her out at this stage is crucial to them because then going into next week, if Rachel's not in the picture, the block of vote's also not in the picture. And so they
Mhm.
have a much better likelihood of then, it'll
Mhm.
be final six, 3-3. So, do you think that they should have continued this plan once Rachel won immunity? Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a hard one because I mean they still did continue it and it worked out how they wanted it to, but I feel like in general, like they could have started to backtrack against it just because then it wasn't exactly the plan, but I'm glad that they did stick with it. It remained to still work. So I think it made sense to stick with it, especially because they had already laid the groundwork before the immunity challenge even started.
Yeah.
If they hadn't started doing that, I think they would have not done it. But because they already did, then it made sense to continue with it, but just change the target.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for Genevieve and Sam. And I mean, we kind of talked about this at the live show last night, but I guess the big question is like, is it good for Andy's game
Yeah.
specifically? Because Andy is now turning on yet another alliance of his and he's showing his cards. So I don't know if it's best for Andy. I remember saying this weeks ago on the podcast where it's like Andy is just proving himself now to be someone you can't trust.
Yeah.
Like he's going to turn when it's best for him, and he has no loyalty to anyone in particular, only to what's best for his game. And so I just think now it's like this the block vote still in the picture. How do you get around that? And now I would think like whether it's strategically the right move or not, I feel like they're going to be most upset with Andy because Sam and Genevieve don't owe anything to them. But Andy, they thought was their ally. and was going to be, on their side with this. And so I do think that they're going to go into next week, the girls, and just be pissed at Andy. And now I would think that he's going to kind of become a lot higher up on their target list. So I don't know. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, made for a fun episode, but probably not great for the long run for Andy.
yeah, yeah. Well, we will see.
We will see.
But we alluded to this, that Rachel won immunity, and uh, Sue now, a kind of a curveball that came into the picture here was that Sue has an idol. And as the target switched to Caroline, and Caroline got word that she might have at least one vote against her, uh, there was a conversation that Caroline and Sue had where Sue was like, well, if I get wind that it might be more than one vote on you, I can just use my idol on you. And that, I mean, I remember when we were in that room, it was like, oh my God, like,
Yeah.
what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
So if that happens, I mean, that breaks everything wide open.
Mhm.
So do you think, as we went to Tribal, based on, I guess, the knowledge that Sue had in that moment, do you think that Sue should have used her idol, or do you understand why she did?
I think she should have. I think it's getting so close to the end here, and she obviously wants to work with Caroline. That's her number one ally.
Yeah.
That also would have added something to Sue's resume that she hasn't really done anything that major. So I think that would have been a good move for her in general if she does make it to the final three. Like to give that as a talking point, saying like, "Well, I made sure Caroline was safe," and then whatever happens next, whatever happens, like with that. But I feel like in general it would have made for really good move on Sue's part, and also then it would have saved Caroline. It wouldn't have made her go home, and we would have had then a revote because it ended up being a tie in
Right.
between Genevieve and Sam.
Who do you
So
think goes home in that revote?
that one's hard. I think maybe
I
Genevieve.
agree.
Yeah,
I think Genevieve goes home.
because Sam keeps on getting out of those revotes. I
I
feel
think
like
they just think
well,
of Genevieve
Genevieve's more
as a
threat.
bigger threat.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think that they would get out Genevieve there, which probably would have
yeah.
been the right move.
The only person who really wants Sam out is Teeny at this point.
Right.
um,
But Teeny wants Genevieve out
yeah,
too. So I mean, I don't think that they would have fought too hard
yeah,
to that.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, what is she waiting for, Sue? I mean, like,
Mhm,
oh, I guess using it on herself would be ideal,
mhm,
but yeah, I mean, Sue's game is a lot weaker without Caroline there. Of
mhm.
course, that's her number one ally. Like, that's the person who she trusts to give her all the information, keep her in the loop. Like, I think that Sue, but I do understand why she didn't, because I really don't think that they had any clue that this was happening.
Yeah,
Like, I don't think that they were that suspicious about it. Like, Caroline said, of course, it's scary knowing that you
mhm.
might have one vote on you, but it's, other than that, there was nothing that kind of could have clued them in, I don't think.
Yeah, other than Andy's persistence of being like, "Well, we need to split the votes,"
That
and
was, yeah, he was really pushing it there, I
yeah,
think, with that. And using the same exact language to
Mhm,
everyone. Like, if they really did compare notes, I think
mhm.
that would have looked suspicious, but why would they? Like, they really thought they could
Yeah,
trust Andy.
yeah,
So I don't blame them. Like, I feel like I can absolutely see how in that moment they would think
yeah,
everything's going normal, going to plan. So I don't blame her, but yeah, I mean, of course, from our perspective, it seemed like she should have done it, but
yeah, and especially when Genevieve didn't end up playing her idol at Tribal, and then
okay,
Sue
yeah.
Sue could have then brought out the idol for Caroline. Like it's not like it was too late at that point.
Thank you for reminding me of that,
Yeah,
because that I think would have clued me in as being suspicious.
yeah,
Like that conversation between Sam and Genevieve, like, should I use my idol? No, I whatever happens, I'm good with whatever happens. Like,
let my
what?
fate live. Like what?
What? Like
Yeah,
that would have rung really suspicious to
yeah.
me. Like, come up with a better reason why. Like
That was
at
really
least
bad
just say, like,
acting.
yeah, at least just say, like, no, I think maybe whatever. Like, I don't know. Like that felt like a weird reason not to use an idol. Like, I
Mhm.
just don't think anyone would ever really say that.
Yeah, no, same. I mean, maybe she was like, "Oh, maybe there are more votes on Sam." Like, I don't know, but that's still like, it's just questionable at that point. Like, I would have thought, like, okay, Genevieve knows that everyone knows that she has this fake idol now. Like, people were
Hmm.
knew that she had it, so they assumed she was playing it. And then when she didn't, like, it didn't make total sense there. So in that regard, maybe we'll get more clarity once Sue comes back or leaves the island and we hear interviews from that. But
I know I need to watch Caroline's
oh,
exit
and yeah,
interview. I haven't done that yet, and I need to do that
because
because I
that
think
could give
that'll
us
give
some
some
clarity too.
insight. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have to see with that. But overall, I mean, it didn't get played. So Sue did not get a big move on her part.
No. Were you surprised that kind of, I guess, when the episode ends and we see everything that happens, Caroline goes home, were you surprised by that point that this operationally worked?
Well, because of the idol not getting played, no. Like if the idol was played, that would have screwed everything up. So I was happy to see it actually get executed
Hmm.
in full force, essentially, except for not getting Rachel, but like still getting someone who is a big threat, who's not part of their alliance out. Or I guess Andy flipped. He was kind of part of that. But he flipped to be back with or on the side with Genevieve and Sam. So I don't know. It's definitely gonna be a crazy episode next week. I feel like now, especially seeing what's gonna
Yeah.
happen, the repercussions of it. But I was happy to see it actually get played out and work in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I just the energy in that room made me want it to work.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, it was just like building up so much that I was like, "I feel like they can't be building this up for
Mhm.
it not to work."
And the music, the suspense.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my god, it was just like I had chills by the end of
Yeah.
it. It was wild, but yeah, I mean, I think by the end, no, I wasn't surprised. I
Mhm.
think I was whispering to you all night, like, yeah, I think it's Caroline. I
Yeah.
think it's gonna work. So I
Mhm.
wasn't surprised, and I was it's weird. Like, I'm happy that it worked because it was exciting, but I feel really like I like Caroline. Like,
Mhm.
there's nothing against her. It wasn't like some awful villain went home that was like sweet poetic justice type of thing.
Mhm.
So it was a shame that it had to be Caroline as the victim of that. But like, if I'm Caroline, I'm thrilled to go home on such a cool like episode.
Yeah.
like
Everyone's talking about it now.
I
So
know it's like, I mean, people are saying it's at least I feel like probably a top 10 episode of Survivor of all time. I would think.
yeah. And
I
people are saying
mean,
the best of the new era.
yeah, I
Yeah.
look, I think the Caleb shot in the dark
Mhm.
episode certainly is up there, but and this is definitely recency bias for me, but like I feel like in my mind of what I can think from the new era, I would say this. I would probably agree with that statement, and
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm forgetting an episode or two that might compete with those as well. But from where I'm sitting right now, from what I can think of, yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. It
it was a
was
great
exciting.
episode. Yeah. At the very end, we do see the jury reacting to this vote, and they are saying, "Oh, Andy flipped again."
Mhm.
Now, I feel like this could be taken one of two ways, where it's
Mhm.
like, "Oh God, Andy flipped again," like not in a respecting his game type of way, or it's, "Oh wow, Andy flipped. Good on him for
Mhm.
doing that." So, which way do you think the jury is taking it, and which way do you think the jury should take it?
That's a good question. For the way I think that they should take it is that, oh, like this is kind of another big move on Andy's part. Like he noticed that there's a big threats over on the side he was working with. He's on the bottom there. Like he worked with Genevieve and Sam, who were on the bottom that week as well, to say like, okay, like now let's do a bigger move here. And
Hmm.
that was a good move on his part. But I think that they are taking it as okay, he doesn't have any allegiance to anyone, and he's just gonna do what's best for him in that moment, like what you're mentioning before, that he's just not a loyal player, and that's not gonna look great if the jury is valuing loyalty and just
Hmm.
overall that you can stick with someone, be allies with someone, instead of just focusing on, okay, well, this isn't going to get me to the next episode next week. Like, you need to think long term, and he's not really thinking that long term right now, because now that other side has a block of vote, or two idols and a block of vote, and he's now with Sam and Genevieve, who have nothing. So for that, that's not great. But if he makes it out of that, then maybe the jury would respect him because he flipped again and somehow got out of it, but and stayed safe, which will be kind of hard to do unless he wins immunity here, I feel like. But overall, it goes both ways. Obviously, we don't know exactly what they're thinking, but
Mhm.
in my opinion, I don't think they're thinking the most positive of him right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's how I took it too, is
Mhm,
not in a positive way that they were viewing him on that for
mhm.
that move. But especially Sierra. I
Yeah,
don't think Sierra's views him positively because she's the victim of him flipping as well. So that was probably a little PTSD for
yeah.
her. But now she's friends with Tana Mojo, so but no, I how they should take it. I look. I think if he was able to get out Rachel here, kind of like I was saying, I think that they should have viewed that as a great move.
Mhm,
Now, I guess they don't know about her walk of vote,
mhm,
so I guess once they found out about that, and if he was able to explain that in the final jury speech, I think that would be a huge win for him.
mhm.
But getting out Caroline here, I think he might have a tougher time explaining that at the end as why that was a good move for him. So I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that this was necessarily the best move for him, but it was the most exciting move for him
Yeah,
and for us, and that's really all that matters. So
exactly.
thank you, Andy. We appreciate your service here.
Yeah,
But anyways, great episode, all-time episode, great one for us to be watching with hundreds of Survivor fans. So
and past
and
contestants
past contestants as well. Yes.
and other podcasters.
Yes. A great room to be watching it
Yes.
with. Well, so we will be back next week. So thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you all soon.
Yes, thanks for listening.
Bye, everyone.